Dear colleagues, good morning from Brussels. My name is Antonion Avenoso. I'm the Executive Director of the European Transport Safety Council. And needless to say, I would love to be at the moment with you in beautiful Copenhagen, which would allow me to present about drink driving in the European Union, while at the same time exchange with you on this very important topic. However, there were some other matters that prevented me from traveling to Denmark, and I would therefore like to thank you for having accepted the possibility of me giving this presentation remotely. As I said, the aim will be to look at the drink driving situation in the European Union and sometimes also beyond, and to look at what the European Transport Safety Council sees as the most important countermeasures that ought to be taken in order to prevent drink driving on our roads. I thought I would start with a slide and a few words about the organization, which is a non-governmental organization which was created in 1993 with the aim of promoting transport safety in the European Union. We have a secretariat in Brussels, 58 member organizations from all over Europe. We have 2 members in Denmark, one being the Danish Road Safety Council and the other one the Central Denmark region, and more than 200 experts contributing to our work. We are a science-based and independent organization, and we receive funding through competitions and work we do with the European Commission, by our member organizations, by member states, and also corporate sponsors. We do receive funding, for example, from 3M, from Toyota Motor Europe, and from the Brewers of Europe. These are some of the projects we carry on. Of course, the main activity is the monitoring of EU transport safety policy, where we advise the European Commission, the Parliament, the Council on transport safety policy matters. We also have a flagship project called the Road Safety Performance Index. You'll see many of the results of this work during this presentation. It's a project that ranks member states on the basis of their road safety performance. And of course, we have projects in other areas like exchange of best practice, education, drug driving, and 2 drink driving projects, one on alcohol interlocks, safe and sober, and the other one more generally on drink driving and road safety, which is called Smart Sober Mobility Across Road Transport. Before going more into the detail of drink driving in the European Union, I thought I would give you some information about the general road safety trends in the EU. There is a target to halve the number of road deaths between 2011 and 2020. There was a target to halve the number of road deaths between 2011 and 2020. This has not been reached, but the European Union and the member states have recommitted to another target, actually 2 targets, one on road deaths and one on serious injuries, for the decade that we're currently running on. And it is the decade 2020-2030. The aim is to divide the number of deaths and the number of serious injuries by half. We're still far away from this target. And if we look at the data in 2021, there were almost 20,000 people who lost their lives on the roads of the European Union. 20,000 means a bit more than 50 every day, which means that a fully loaded jumbo jet will crash every 3 days, and there will be no survivors. I mentioned the progress for the previous decade, and you can see that after a very encouraging start in the first 3 years of the decade with a very good reduction, the curve has flattened, and we had to wait only 2019 and 2020 to achieve a very important reduction. But as you can imagine, this reduction was achieved because of the COVID pandemic, lockdown on working, not traveling because of restrictions to travel and restriction to transport. Already in 2021, with the restrictions of the pandemic being gradually lifted, we have seen already an increase in the number of road deaths in 2021 over 2020. This is a breakdown by country for the period 2011-2021. The average for the European Union, the 27 member states of the European Union, has been a reduction of 31%. The countries in green have been doing better than this average. Notably, you can see Norway with an impressive reduction of 52% and Lithuania with 50%. Then some countries in yellow where the reduction has been lower than the EU average, and then the ones in red that should have been doing much better than they have done. What is important, however, is that in all of the 32 countries that ETSC is monitoring in this graph, they all managed to reduce the number of deaths between 2011 and 2021. This is a picture of the difference in road mortality in the European Union and some other countries in terms of number of road deaths per million inhabitants in 2021. And you can see that whereas there are countries where this road mortality is below 20, well, in others we have a mortality which is much, much higher than 60, which means that there is still a lot of work to do to make sure that wherever the country we're traveling on in the European Union, the levels of safety are the same. And I've put this also into this graph here with road mortality in 2021 compared to 2011. You see that Norway remains the road safety champion for these 32 countries that we are analyzing. Denmark is doing pretty well. You see there it's country number 5 in light green, whereas the situation needs substantial improvement in countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Latvia, and Serbia. But let me now move on to the main topic of today's presentation, which is drink driving in the European Union. I'll start with this shocking figure that up to 1.5 to 2% of the kilometers driven in the European Union are done with an illegal BAC, which means that even though generally it is now widely accepted and recognized that drinking and driving should be two mutually exclusive activities, still too many people are willingly or sometimes maybe not being aware of that, they are taking the risk of driving with a BAC limit which is above what is allowed in the country they are driving in. And the European Commission has estimated that up to 1/4 of all road deaths in the European Union are alcohol related. And on the basis of these data, the calculation is easily made. At least 5,000 deaths could be saved every year if we manage to develop a society in which we only had sober driving. And these are the results of a study, of a survey which was made in 2016, and it is now being updated in the European Union. And 31% of drivers admitted to have driven after consuming alcohol in the previous year. And this is voluntary reporting, so we can imagine that these 31% could also be non-reporting. There could probably be a higher figure of people having driven after drinking. When it comes to drink driving in the European Union, one of the issues that we usually mention in the first place is the problem in drink driving data collection. First and foremost, there are different definitions of what a drink driver is in different countries. For example, some countries include in the drink driving data everybody who was in the vehicle that was driven by somebody who had drunk and that has caused a collision. For some countries, people need to be tested each time there is a collision. In some other countries, this is not possible, and there are countries in which, for example, people who die on the spot are beyond any possibility of being tested for drink driving. So what would be important at the European Union level would already be to have a common definition, widely common definition, and accepted and applied by all member states of what is a drink driver and a drink driving death. Also, we believe that road users should be tested systematically each time they are stopped for whatever reason, and in any case, each time there is a collision. And it is important also to rely on information coming from the hospitals, because it has been shown that the police data do not give a full picture of the drink driving problem in the European Union. And ETSC recommends, and as a way forward, that every driver, rider, and walker involved in a fatal and serious collision should be tested systematically for drink driving. This slide shows the progress in tackling drink driving in the period 2010-2019. As we said before, there are different definitions of what a drink driver is in one country compared to another country, so it would not really make sense to just compare the numbers of drink drivers, the numbers of deaths because of drink driving of each country, because that would not be statistically meaningful and statistically correct. We have therefore developed this indicator, which shows the difference between the average annual percentage change in deaths attributed to drink driving and the corresponding change in other road deaths. And which means that the countries that are on the left-hand side have reduced the number of deaths because of drink driving more quickly and more effectively than they have done so for the other road deaths. Therefore, a country that is on the right-hand side of the graph may have reduced the number of road deaths, but for drink driving, but not as good, not as well as they will have done it for the other road deaths. And you see that Denmark is on the left-hand side of the graph in yellow, so better than the average. And it shows that in the country, in the period between 2010 and 2019, well, the number of deaths because of drink driving have been reduced at a faster pace than the other road deaths. Now, next slide. Okay. Another point which I wanted to mention as a very important and effective countermeasure when it comes to tackling drink driving in the European Union is the BAC limit. It is important that the BAC limit is low or extremely low in the countries, and that it is enforced in order to make sure that we can tackle drink driving deaths. There is a recommendation from the European Union dating back to 2001, and we have to say that almost all EU countries are now in line with this EU recommendation, and now there is no EU country having a BAC limit which is higher than 0.5 mg for ml. And there are 23 countries that are applying a lower limit for novice drivers. The issue of novice drivers is extremely important when it comes to driving. They have less experience, they have not the same capacity of driving safely as somebody with more experience, and it is therefore important that the BAC limit for them is lower than for the general driving population. And also 21 EU countries are applying a lower BAC limit for professional drivers. We do commend and we do applaud those who have lower limits. However, we have been asking now for quite a long time a much stricter approach to the issue of BAC limits. We believe actually that when it comes to drink driving, there should be zero tolerance. Basically, the limit should be simply zero, and it should be made clear in legislation, both at European level and at national level, that if you drive, you don't drink, and if you drink, you don't drive. This should be made clear, and it should be applied and sanctioned. When you have a higher limit, 0.2, 0.5, well, it's very difficult to apply for the driver. Many people will say, I can have a drink, no, maybe I can have two, and obviously there is no clear rule, because it depends also on the tolerance to alcohol of the different persons, on their weight, on whether they are male or female. So this is why it would be much easier for everybody if the limit was zero. So zero limit when it comes to drink driving in the European Union. Of course, we need to have a low limit, but we also need to be aware about the situation and about the current limits. At the moment, this is the result of a quite old now Eurobarometer study, but on average, only 27% of the respondents to this Eurobarometer survey knew the BAC limit in their country. 36% gave a wrong answer, and 37%, 1 in 3, more than 1 in 3, well, simply didn't know what the limit was in their country, which means that many countries have a BAC limit, but basically more than 2 persons in 3 don't know what it is. So it's very difficult to respect it if you don't know what it is. And this is probably yet another argument for what we were saying before, the importance of have zero tolerance when it comes to drink driving. What is extremely important once you have a low or a zero tolerance BAC limit is to make sure that there is strict enforcement. People need to be tested. They need to know that the moment they decide to risk it, the moment they decide to try and breach the law and try and drink and then drive, they will be caught. And increasing the number of checks will certainly increase the objective risk of being caught, but also the subjective risk, because if you see police controls, even if they're not checking you, even if you hear from a friend that they have been checked, well, that will increase the deterrence effect, because you know that next time it may be you. And here we see that at the moment this subjective dimension is quite low, and the ESRA survey from 2018 showed that only 1 driver in 5 thought they would be tested for drink driving on a regular journey. That means 4 out of 5, 8%, in such case, well, 78% thought they could actually drink because they would encounter no police control on drink driving. And finally, another countermeasure that I would like to mention is alcohol interlock. So we've talked about BAC limits, we've talked about awareness of these limits, we've talked about enforcement, but these measures need to also be, I would say, supported by technology. And the alcohol interlock is by now not rocket science, is a proven technology that works, and it's a technology that basically can be installed in any vehicle, and that prevents the vehicle engine from starting unless a breath test, a negative breath test, has been taken. And actually, with the entering into force of the general safety regulation, describing how the new vehicles need to be built in the European Union, now all vehicles will have to be fittable with an alcohol interlock. Alcohol interlocks, first and foremost, can be used as part of rehabilitation programs imposed as a condition for driver license recovery. We have interlocks in Finland and in Sweden traditionally, but also France, also Estonia, Germany, the country in which I'm living, Belgium. In such a case, if a driver is caught drink driving, well, the judge, or in some cases the administrative authority, can decide to continue granting this driver the possibility of driving the car and maybe keeping their job, while, however, at the same time using an alcohol interlock. And the alcohol interlock is therefore a way of continue driving, continue probably using the car for work or for other reasons while being sober. What's important to stress as well is that the alcohol interlocks need to be coupled with rehabilitation programs. The issue of drink driving and the alcohol dependency need, in any case, to be dealt also with a medical program, and the driver needs to be helped to be able to avoid drink driving, because otherwise, the moment in which the alcohol interlock is removed, well, the risk of recidivism could be very high. Apart from programs of recidivism, alcohol interlocks are also used as a quality assurance mechanism in many fleets or public transport, taxis, buses, and we've seen a more and more widespread use of alcohol interlocks amongst professional drivers in the European Union. You can also check the map that we have on our website. The map describing the situation of alcohol interlocks, whether for commercial transport or rehabilitation in the different member states of the European Union. Last slide, you can see some key ETSC recommendations about drink driving. Of course, we mentioned the importance of data collection, the adoption of a zero tolerance level for all road users, the intensification of enforcement, the development of alcohol interlocks for rehabilitation programs, but also for professional drivers. And last but not least, we did not have time to talk about that, also awareness campaigns, programs, and activities that can help raise the profile of sober driving and promote sober driving among the population. I also refer you to the latest ETSC publication on drink driving. There will be another one giving an update in December this year. So stay tuned, and you'll be able to find that on the ETSC website. Also, some references here from this slide and our website. And thank you very much for listening to me. And I wish you a good conference, and do not hesitate to contact me if you would like more information.